We are live.
Says so.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. We'd like to thank you for joining us at the York History Group, our first anniversary meeting. I looked this afternoon, we're up to 1,365 members and climbing. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. We'd like to thank you for joining us at the York History Group, our first anniversary meeting. I looked this afternoon, we're up to 1,365 members and climbing. So anyways, this is just a meet and greet. People tell us what they'd like to hear and have questions. We want to meet everybody. We're entirely thankful to our moderator, Elaine Wood. I'm sorry, I was studying a Grant family today. But anyways, so we'll get on with it in a few minutes. I do want to bring up something. Somebody sent me a message aside today. There was some talk on the page about KKK, and somebody said, "Oh, well, you're not going to start defaming all these people that I grew up with that I admire." I said, no, we will never do that intentionally. We're not going to talk about the negative on people or families. So don't worry, we're not going to bring anybody down here. That's not our thing. So anyways, I'm gonna let Kevin do a little thing, and then we're gonna meet our guests and listen to what they have to talk about, because I can go on forever and I won't. So thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. So we wanted to acknowledge the passing of Ted Little today and offer his wife, Sue, and his family and friends our condolences. Ted was a great person and a big part of York's community. Probably almost everybody knows him. He'll be greatly missed, and we're going to have a moment of silence for Ted. Okay, thank you. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to let everybody in. We have some people waiting here to join us.
Who wants to sound off?
I'll say something. I think we've got a good group here, and I think we've been very fortunate to have some of the people that have been posting on here and seeing the family connections. It's just so interesting, and I want to thank all of you.
Thank you, Elaine. I want to thank them too.
Yeah, this group has been absolutely, I just really like it. And I'm not probably as out there as many people are, but I read so much history here, and especially like in the last day. Oh, we have another person trying to come in. Let me let them in. Especially in the last, well, forever. It's been like there's so much information that I would not have had about York's history if it wasn't for this group. And it's just so immediate and right there, and it's always like a great surprise. Okay, so I'm just letting Marjorie in.
It's not always just the ancient history. It's the I knew Will Grover, and he's been spoken of in recent postings, and it's great memories to come back.
Yep, sure is. Anyone want to sound off? Lori?
Sure. Hello, everybody. Very excited to have connected with this group. Just found you a few weeks ago. I think it's always interesting for your feedback to find out how people are finding the group. I decided on a whim just to search on YouTube to see if anybody had posted something interesting about York, since I haven't been in many decades, and the group came up. So then I found you on Facebook and was just delighted to find this great community where I can share and also learn a little bit more about my long history.
Thank you for joining us. I know a little bit about Lori's family, and when I found out who she was, I said, I mean, wow, Brave Boat Harbor Farm. That's just for anybody that's familiar with York and not familiar with Brave Boat Harbor Farm. I think it's probably the nirvana of the town, or whatever you want to call it. It's and I always thought about it when I go out there by boat. I say, why would anybody ever want to leave this place? So Lori and I have talked by email a couple of times, and she is related to Fred Quimby, the famous photographer. So she's got a lot of digging to do. She's got a lot of digging to do, but I'm glad we've made the acquaintance. Thank you again, Lori.
Thank you.
Lori, is it your mother that, did I get in touch with you on Facebook about Kevin's photograph? Or was somebody else?
I don't believe so, but my relation comes through my maternal grandmother, who was a Rains,
Okay.
and actually the 12th generation, dating back to Captain Francis Rains, who came over from England sometime in the early part of the 1600s. And just to add a little bit more flavor to what Kevin was saying, those original lands by Brave Boat Harbor had been in my family until it was sold in the late 40s or 1950s by my great uncle, and much to our chagrin. And I literally had never been to York until I was well into my late 20s, I believe, or 30s, when I came to find my roots, because I was raised on stories about this magical place called York. My grandmother told me stories ad nauseum about her summers on the farm and how wonderful it was. And it was obviously the greatest part of her life. And so when I was an adult, I decided to go find it myself. And we didn't have Google, obviously, back then, and maps were poor. And I knew it was by the coast, and I ran into this place called Rains Neck Road and figured, well, if I follow that, maybe I'll find this magical farmhouse. And I ended up using the Yellow Pages to find the family who lived at Brave Boat Harbor, and called up Marion Hosmer. The family still owns the property, and told her who I was and asked her if she knew anything about this old farmhouse. And she said, you should come over. And so she was very gracious and took me on a tour, even though she could barely walk herself. She must have been certainly in her 80s and possibly in her 90s. She unfortunately died the next year. And she ended up showing me a photo album that my family had left in the old farm. And I cried. It was literally all of the visuals of these stories that I'd been raised on. So she was really kind and gracious. And I was supposed to come out and see her the next year, but she had passed away. So I came again and met her eldest son and wife. And they're the ones who inherited the property and live there. So
Wow.
anyway,
Great story.
to derail the conversation, but yeah, so that's my connection to York and my personal history with the area.
So you've been here one time to York?
I've been there twice, and now that I have this new resurgence of community and interest, I've decided I'm going to come back and bring my children, and we'll go knock on the Hosmer's door and see if they'll be as gracious and let us tour the old place. They actually rent out the old farmhouse, and it was unfortunately very dilapidated, almost to the point where most other people, I believe, would have just torn it down. And so to their credit, I'm sure they put a lot of money to restore it. But when I went in, there were original floorboards and doorknobs, those low little doorknobs. And it was just unreal experience. So I will be coming back.
Hope to see you.
Yeah, let us know.
I certainly will. Then maybe we can have an in-person meeting over coffee somewhere. You guys tell me where.
I want to welcome Jean Wells to the group. And I also want to say, hi, Jean.
Hi.
I also want to say, if anybody else, I see we've got quite a few people watching on Facebook. If you want to join this conversation, you can just click on the link and we'll let you right in. There's no password or anything. it's open. Elaine and I share a little similar story, right? With the Hepzibah Talpe owning most of York Beach, our ancestor, one of our common
What a
ancestors.
baby.
Yeah. And yeah,
baby.
Freeman.
What a baby.
Yeah,
And
wait, hold on.
that's Roger. Does Roger know he's long? Anyway, so yeah, so that was a revelation.
Oh, am I
too, when was
talking
doing
on
my-
the air?
when I-
Jeez,
Fix your microphone, Roger.
talking to my cat. It's terrible. I feel awful, Kevin. Right?
No,
Really?
don't feel bad. It's all.
No,
We're gonna.
I'm glad I didn't swear at him, you know.
Wow.
Turn your audio off, Raj, unless
I
you
will
have
do.
something.
Okay, I'm listening with great interest.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah. So anyway, so Elena, so I found out that our common ancestor owned a large chunk from probably the Number Light up to the Cape Meddock River. And, over the generations, that was like 5 generations ago, it all got sliced up and sold, and not to my benefit. I don't know.
Oh, mine.
We can all commiserate then over
Yeah,
what we could have had.
Barbara,
Yes, sir.
can you tell us a little?
Okay,
Kevin,
my
you ready?
connection with York, I was born and raised in northern New York. Live in North Carolina now. My connection is that my mother was born in, as the family always called it, the house on Cider Hill, which I guess is now, I've nailed it down to 106 Cider Hill Road, and the house no longer stands. Her grandparents were Henry Plaisted and Harriet Gowen Plaisted. So I started, she and her sister did a lot of genealogical work back in the day when you had to travel everywhere.
Right,
And I inherited that. And recently we have decided the end of June, we're going to eventually get to York. I'm going to be able to spend a couple of days up there. And so I've been digging to get, what can I find out? What can I find out? And I'm trying to identify as many of the original settlers as I can, which is confusing the daylights out of me in some ways, because I think I'm related to 3/4 of whoever settled in the York, Kittery, up to Elliott area. I'm laughing every time I come up with another name. I saw Kevin Freeman. There's an Alice Freeman mentioned quite often in my mother's notes. She evidently spoke to someone named Alice Freeman,
Oh,
or corresponded with her. But it's got a feeling it's probably some relation to yours, but I don't know who it is.
Yeah,
So
there's several.
did
and
you visit York as a child?
Yes, we did. We would come up once in a while. That was about the only place we went on vacation. My mother used to say that her relatives would never go to Boston. So they certainly weren't going to go to New York. And so her family would drive up. So some of the pictures I have, my mother and my aunt were, maybe 6 and 4 or something. So I've got some pictures that are quite of them that go way
Right.
back up in that area, but they would go visit, and we would go when I was a kid. We'd go up periodically. My parents divorced, so my mother and my aunt would take me and my brother up there periodically. So I think of nubble and spillers and foxes and hunting for, digging mussels and things like that. That's what I think of in York.
Thank you, good stuff. I love the picture. I love the connection with Angevine Gowan. That brings a lot, home to me.
Yep, he was their cousin.
Yeah,
I think the Alice Freeman you're talking about was the parents of Jimmy Freeman, and she was married to Leslie Freeman, and they took care of Angie in his old age. And
Oh,
they lived-
really?
and they lived in Angie's house. If you look at Carl Hansen's posting, the very last page has a picture of telescope. I can't really see that from here. But it talks about Angie had a sister, Annie, who married an Everett Freeman, and parents of Leslie Freeman, and Leslie married Alice, and they were the parents of Jimmy Freeman, and they moved into the house to take care of Angie before he died. So
Okay,
that's the Alice Freeman I believe you're talking about.
that makes sense.
Yeah, and Wayne, yesterday I was looking up Everett, and Everett's father was the village blacksmith, Nathaniel.
Right,
Yeah,
Daniel.
I haven't gone back farther than that, but I intend to.
We need to.
Well, Tom, what do you like about our group and about the history that you've shared so much with us?
You just asked me,
Yeah,
Kevin?
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was asked to, I've been posting on different history groups, and one was the York Harbor and Beach Railroad, which I know an awful lot about, and the trolleys and trains. And I got involved in this group by posting some information about that. And that led me into, being an active member of this group in different regards. My family, I've got family connections, but I've also lived here almost my whole life too. My great grandmother was a McIntyre, York McIntyre. Her name was Elizabeth McIntyre. And so I have a lot of McIntyre type of information. I will say I'm kind of the family archivist. I've collected history for years and been very much involved in it. I grew up in Kittery, and I'm part of 5 generations in Kittery, so I know a lot about the Kittery history and the people in Kittery. My dad worked on the Navy Yard, and in the early 50s, he bought some property out on Nubble Point, which is where Viewpoint is now. There wasn't much on Nubble Point back in 1951 when he bought the property, but we built some cottages and a motel. And from 1951 till 1993, I pretty much lived on Nubble Point. And as such, I know an awful lot about Nubble Point and the lighthouse and all of that. I was also very involved in the York Beach. I was an overseer in York Beach, which is like a selectman. I was on the York Beach Police Department for 3 years. I was on the York Beach Fire Department for 10 years. So I know a lot of the York Beach folks, and equally, I know a lot of the Kittery folks too. So I've been active in kind of different areas in this group, kind of focused on the Nubble, focused on York Beach, and maybe in particular the railroads and the trolley. My great grandfather was an incorporator of the Portsmouth, Kittery, and York Street Railway, and so I've got a lot of family history around that. Another great grandfather was the accountant or paymaster of the trolley, and I've, over the years, I've written a lot of history about my family, but my connections are not only family related, as I say, but they're real life too. I grew up with a lot of the folks in York, even though I did not attend any of the York schools. I know probably as many people in York as I do in Kittery. So it's just a fascination, I would say a hobby in a way, to be able to be very interested in the town's history and the different aspects of it. So every once in a while, I just post something that seems to be interesting. And I have a library of pictures and information that is quite extensive, actually. And so if I think it's something that is interesting, I just recently had a bunch of information about the anchorage, and I posted, kind of a historical lineage of the anchorage and the railroad that was associated and all of that. So once in a while, I just get this whim of saying, okay, I'm gonna dig into my history and my archives and post something. So, and hopefully it's interesting to other people too. So I've got the family piece, I've got the real life piece of living out on Noble Point. I now live in York Harbor down on Wavecrest Drive, and I look at Noble Light from my house every day. So kind of get homesick, but
Nice.
so I know a lot about what's going on, and it's always been fascinating to me. So that's my story.
Nice. Thank you.
Good, you do a good job, Tom. Thank you.
Yeah,
When
yeah,
you-
it's
When
it's
you
once in a
add
while, I'll
something,
just pick a subject and I'll say, okay, I'm gonna dig into that a little bit, and I've done it with lots in my own family history too. That the Prince family goes way back, and it's just like the McIntyres. So I'm the 10th generation of the Prince family here in Maine. So
Wow.
so it's Prince's Point up in Falmouth, Maine was my 10th great grandfather. So
oh, wow.
so there's a lot of deep history, and I've always lived here. I mean, I've always lived in either Kittery or York. So consequently, it's not like I've moved out and came back. It's like I touched it and I felt it for years and years. And again, I've always had this affinity toward the historical piece of it. So it's this is a great group. I'm delighted to be involved in it and read all of the different posts, and it's keep up the good work, I guess.
Thanks, Tom. How are you related to Billy?
I'm
Really?
not. No,
You're not?
no relation. No.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, he's been around a long, long time, and I have too. But there is, I'm sure, if you go way back in the Prince
Right.
family history, there is some relation, but there's nothing immediate. There's no. My roots came through Cumberland and Falmouth, Maine, and then eventually in the Civil War into Kittery, and 5 generations in Kittery. By the way, I'm as involved in Kittery history too. I help out with the Kittery Historical and Naval Museum. In fact, they just had a project in January where they're going to republish a book on the colonial homes of Kittery. And they wanted to be able to find someone who would research on these 30 homes that were in the book in 1947. What's happened to them? Are they still standing? And so I just concluded a 2.5 month research on all of the colonial homes in Kittery. I never thought I knew as much about those, but
Wow.
so I do help, and I am as involved, I think, in the Kittery history as I am in the York history. But it's a good tie-in because the two towns are right next door to one another. But I am involved in helping them out too.
Is that research available to the public on the colonial homes?
They're going to publish, they're going to, not yet. They're going to republish a book that was written by Joseph Frost back in 1947, and it was called Colonial Village. And it was about the colonial homes of Kittery and structures like schools or warehouses. And so they want an appendix in that book. So I essentially wrote the appendix and all of the research involved in it of the 30 different places. And, you know, growing up in Kittery, I have to say the colonial homes they didn't float my boat that much. But now I know more about colonial homes and structures in Kittery than probably anyone at this point. So they are going to republish the book as part of their 75th anniversary this year or coming up. And so I did all the research on that and to help them out. But I think in probably 6 or 10 months, they'll probably publish this book on the colonial structures in Kittery. So not yet. I've given them all of my research.
Very nice.
I did some research up in their archives. I spent a day up in there.
Yeah.
They needed a lot of organization up there upstairs in the Naval Museum.
Oh, yeah.
It was
Well,
kind of,
they're organizing a lot up there. Douglas Amston, who graduated with his daughter from high school and knew her real well. She had donated all of Doug Amston's photographs, and they're
all right.
categorizing all of those now. Great photographs of the, Portsmouth and Kittery and the area. And so they're doing a pretty good job. They've got a shoestring budget, let's say, but they're a good group, and they're as active and I guess interested in all of the history as I am too. So
Linda Grover, was Linda Grover, is she still involved?
that's not a name that strikes a bell. Janice Farmer is organizing all of the photographs, and Kim Sanborn is the director of the museum. Bob Gray.
Linda used to manage the bank downtown.
Okay,
Man,
yeah, remember her. That's right, because I worked at TD Bank in 43 years, so I'm retired now. So I know as equally as much about banks, and she worked, down in downtown Kittery.
Just one more thing. I particularly like that posting you put up 3 months ago, the B&M map that you found of the York Beach and the Nubble. The Old York has one of those, and it's a big.
Yes, they
4x5
they do.
or something.
Yeah, they have one, and I have one, and fascinating to look at from 1888 and the detail that's involved in it. And I've taken sections of that. I've written, I don't know if I posted it out on this one, but like the Long Beach Station and some of the others, that I've taken some of the detail that's in there and kind of zeroed in on it. I have probably about at least 300 photographs of the trains and trolleys from Kittery to York. And if there's any one subject I know a heck of a lot about, it's trains and trolleys. So, but from that, it branches off into some of the other things. So, and
Thank you very much, Tom.
You're very welcome.
Wealth of information.
Yeah, well,
We got
plan on
people standing by. We're gonna move on to Cory Geil. He's an old
Okay.
trained man himself. But thank you for your input. You do
Good.
Yeah.
a good service.
And Tom, maybe sometime we can have you on just to interview you about the trains in New York.
Sure.
That'd be great. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I love that. I love that show. I asked the other guy, but he didn't.
Yeah, so Cory, what's up?
Well, I'm not a big contributor here, but I am an admirer. As I am Kevin's age, we went to school together. I'm a little more interested in the 30s. Would enjoy the old. I just seen a big change in York. A lot of old houses. My father came here from Sanford after the fires with his family, and my grandfather and 4 boys, and so we're local York people, except for a couple of years. But I don't have the connection historically as some of the other guests do.
No, that's quite all right. You got a long connection to York.
Yeah.
Well, Cory, did your grandfather live on the Heights?
Yes,
Because we lived
Clarence.
across the street from him,
yeah, Clarence Geil.
and he worked for the electric company, right?
Yeah, Central Maine Power. He was actually president.
Yes, yes. Because I know it would be around noontime, he would be coming home for lunch. As
Yeah.
kids, we would watch him drive up the hill.
And
Did he move to York, Cory?
they moved down here from Newfield after the fires.
Oh, the
Oh.
fires.
Yeah, they almost lost their farm, and everything was they saved the farm, but everything around it was burnt. So they moved down here, and they actually lived in the house that's to the left of the driveway going up to the village elementary school. That white house, I think it's a real estate insurance place.
Yeah.
Oh, Major Stoddard's house. Yeah, I know the house.
Yeah, that's where they lived for quite a while. And then they
Okay.
moved in later years across from the IGA
Mhm.
up on the hill there.
Yep.
And so I'm probably going to call every now and then because I enjoy this. I didn't know what to say today, but I do want to interject that I have been very fortunate to have a lot of things to do with Noble Light.
Oh.
I was in the Coast Guard for 4 years, and we used to refuel Noble Light. We used to go over there. We used to check the cisterns. You know, we met with the families that lived there. And then when it went automatic, we still had to haul the hose up over the back to refuel it, and we refueled Boone Island also.
Wow.
And then I got out of the Coast Guard and worked for the town of York as the public buildings, beach and ground supervisor. And I painted the workshop out there. I've painted the red building. I've, monitored a whole government makeover of the place. I've stayed overnight there. I've really enjoyed. I have pictures of it.
Did we lose him?
We lost him.
Yeah, too
Think,
bad.
Cory, come back.
I think he might have ran out of power or something.
I think he did.
Yeah.
It was breaking up.
He's a good example of something.
There?
That's like, yeah, we hear you. We lost you temporarily.
And I've seen you'll never
Kind of a bad connection for me.
Yeah, we got a bad, Cory, we got a bad connection. Maybe if you stand up or something.
Well, I'm down in Connecticut, probably that's why.
I'm so glad that you.
I'm down here working.
Oh, wow. I think he's down. Did you say he's down in Connecticut
Are
working?
we still together or not?
It's intermittent.
Yeah, I'm down in Connecticut working for the shipyard. So
Oh,
Sweet.
Oh,
Wow.
nice.
Corey, this is Tom Prince. I've got a question for you. You mentioned
yes, sir.
working on the lighthouse. Were you on the ship, the Cow Slip?
No, I was on the White Heat.
Okay,
The Cow Slip. Our boat was 133-foot buoy tender, and we refueled. The Cow Slip was a smaller one that did some work with the actual light. You know,
'Cause
did
growing up out-
electrical work.
yeah. Growing up out there, the Cow Slip would show up every 6 months and would bring water over to the
Well,
lighthouse.
they could have been before.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could have been before my
Okay.
White Heath was that boat, but that's a good question. Just for instance, the Novel is such a important place to York, and Werner and Henry Runlet did a lot for the pond and the lighthouse, and they started originally doing the lighting of the Nub House, lighting of the Novel. And a lot of times the old Christmas lights, by the time it was January, they banged against the thing so long that there was no more lights. There was one here and one there. And when I was working for the Parks and Recreation, I was fortunate enough to get Buckingham Electric to donate the rope lighting that we see today. So, I've been up and down that place. It's a very important place to me. But I want to let somebody else.
I think we lost you, Cory.
He's still there. Hey, you still there?
Who? Tom?
Have in the life, I know it. Top to bottom, the turns, boat house, the generator house, everything. So ask the time.
Hey, I just let somebody in, says iPhone, no volume. I didn't put a passcode on this, so I don't know who it is. So I just wanted to let everybody know. Cory, I just want to say that I'm really glad that your grandparents moved to York and that you're here with us.
Yes, yes.
Thank you for your
Oh,
input, Cory.
You know what? Yeah, and I enjoy you guys, and I'll think of other things that are pertinent to York, because like my father's, you know, and his brothers were all bellhops at the Marshall House. My mother was a beautician at Bueller's hair place, you know, where right next to Cumberland Farms, you know, so I mean, we have a great history. It's just a little bit more modern, and I'm hoping that if we start talking about that stuff, maybe we can get even more members.
Would be good.
But thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cory. Kevin, I think the next person in order, if we're going in order, was Marjorie. Would you like to say something, Marjorie?
No, I'm just listening. Thank you.
Okay.
Is that Margie Cairns?
Hastings, I was married to Boardman and lived in the old house on 10 Shore Road.
You were married to Jim?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, I know him.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for
That's-
joining us.
It's so interesting.
Thank
Thank you.
So how about Jean?
Jeannie was my classmate.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this is really weird because first of all, Kevin is cousin, Kevin Freeman,
Yeah.
and Kevin McKinney, we were classmates, and I'm seeing a whole different side of you, Kevin, through this whole thing. I had no idea back, you know, when we were in school together that you had
Yeah.
any interest in history or anything. It's been through time that I developed an interest in history. My mother got me started on that. And I've done a lot of work on the genealogy, but I don't have it all summarized the way that I would like to. So for example, there are a couple of stories of how the Moultons came to York. And I have not tracked down the details yet to verify that. My brother Brad Moulton has mentioned that we started over in the Cider Hill area, actually, and then moved down towards York Harbor, and then eventually ended up where we've been quite a while, up on the mountain. And it's nice that Wendy Moulton, her maiden name is another one of my cousins, a closer cousin than Kevin. And the homestead that was there, has been there for many, many years, is still there, which is really cool. About maybe 2 or 3 years ago, Wendy actually took me out on in her car and went around the back of the property, and that was pretty cool. I was only up there once as a kid when I was probably about 5 years old, and all I remember of that, they had a big reunion at that time, and I remember that it was a long road going up a steep hill to get up to the place. So it was really cool to see it so many years later. I've developed a real keen interest, of course, in Cape Nettic, where most of us grew up. And of course, my brother Brad is still there in Cape Nettic. My sister Joyce has moved further north in Maine. I ended up, because of my career, moving out of the state, but I still consider, of course, myself a Mainer. So, and you can't take that out of me. And people notice the difference. I move at a different pace than the people here. And I'm in Rochester, New York now, have been for quite a few years. And the pace is entirely different over here. And pretty much I had to declare to people when I first got a job over at Rochester Institute of Technology, and just said, look, I grew up in Maine. You can take me or leave me because this isn't going to change. My pace is the pace I learned from growing up. So anyway, I contribute when I can. And my mother took a lot of home movies. And I think that you enjoyed one that Kevin reposted from Cape Nettic over to York of Mount Agmeticus in the
Great
winter
movie.
that my mother had taken. I only wish that that camera had recorded sound, but it was too early, I guess, for them to have sound. And there are so many different people from York that I'm glad that it's getting a lot of traffic, that people have enjoyed seeing that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, Jim, before you stop, can you tell us a little bit about your grandparents that I think it was Jaffa that they went to on the ship up from York?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite ones that I'm still working on. He was my great grandfather was a little boy, Leon, when his father took him and two other siblings and his wife to Jaffa, which is right around Jerusalem. You know, it's Israel. And it was a wild time back then. I can only surmise from the fact that they went on this journey. They were the only ones from York, that he was a deeply religious man. He had to have been to uproot his whole family and go on this trip all the way out, you know, to there.
And they
And
took their houses with them, correct?
yes, they did. They had prefab. They had Sears, I believe, Sears buildings or some kind of prefab buildings that they assembled once they got to Jaffa. And two of the siblings died in transit, and his mother died as well. So it's a miracle that that he survived. And when he came back, then we ended up with 11. He had 11 children via the marriage, and there were actually 13 at one time. 2 died early on. So that's why we have so many cousins in the area, because they tended to stay in the Cape Nettic, Maine area. So we still have lots of people there. I'm one of the few people who have left the state.
Yeah.
Gene, I asked you a question a couple of months ago when you were kind of confused. Maybe you didn't see the posting, but Peter Moore gave me a picture of the collapsed bridge, the past Conway Bridge. We put it up, the one that collapsed in 2006. And the picture actually tells the original builder in 1935. But it said that all the groundwork back and forth leading to the bridge, the road work, the riprap, the stones, the ledge, was done by Adrian Moulton Sr.
I didn't see that, Kevin.
But is Adrian Moulton Sr. your grandfather?
Yes. Yes, he's my
And
grandfather.
he was in the construction business of some sort?
Well, he ran a similar path to Dennis Main, another cousin, his father, who used to do a lot of different odd jobs. So my grandfather did as well. So he worked on the naval shipyard, but I believe that he did other odd jobs like you're mentioning as well. His primary one that we knew him for was the naval shipyard. But I got the impression that he had some other jobs prior to landing that one.
Well, he's credited with the roadway leading to and from the past Conway Bridge. And the one other thing that I wanted to mention, because you talked about Wendy Moulton, and I talked to Dave, her brother Dave, a while back. And if Lori Thornton is still on board from California,
I am.
those Moultons, those people were all subject to Fred Quimby's photographs, because he went from Brave Boat Harbor to Ground Nut Hill. And so Fred Quimby's related to those Moultons somehow too. Maybe Kevin Freeman knows.
I do know I have Moultons on my family tree, so Jean, we're probably distant cousins.
Yes,
So
you
do
are.
I.
See,
Because
there's the connection somehow.
I mean, if you have roots 12 generations ago, I figure I'm related
Right.
to you somehow. There's just no way that we couldn't be.
It was either a Martha or a Mary Moulton, I believe, who married into the Quimby family. And it was right around that time that the photographs were being taken, from what I can figure out.
Have you seen all the photos, Gene? Because I'm telling Lori, there's 250 photos supposedly.
I have not. Brad was saying that he and Leon were going to go visit, but now Leon's not doing as well. He's much older, so Brad hasn't gotten around to that.
I'll take that
Visit.
as an action item. That was something that, thank you, Kevin M, for telling me about that. I was really fascinated by the photos I saw, and I'll try to dig in and see if I can get access to the library and share that.
That would be.
Oh my God.
Well, we'll see. So
Yeah,
I'll keep you all posted.
yeah, you guys are all related there somehow.
I want to interject that we do have people watching. Stuart Pennington and Ricky Foster, you guys are commenting out there. If you guys want to join us, you're welcome to come in here. We know who you are, at least.
Thank you, Gene.
You're welcome.
So I think we're going to try. Are we going to try to wrap up at the top of the hour here?
Oh, I don't know. It just let whoever is in that keep coming.
Okay, because I want
Brian.
to make a comment, but I don't want to make a comment if we're going to cut things at 5. And that is that in the last year or two, I have received a lot of these documents by amateur historians, and I think the last one was from Carl Hansen yesterday. I think it was by Robert Grover, and it was like the Grover family history from England to York, and then to Boston and back up to York and stuff. And I found that a lot of these people, like probably in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, did a lot of research. They had a lot of family history available to them, probably in family Bibles and other documents. And they compiled this, these like probably like between 10 and 40-page documents. And right now I have like on the Wynn family, the Norton family, the Perkins family, and people either emailed them to me or I have found them in other places and photocopied them myself. And the thing that's interesting is that there is a real depth of appreciation for people's family histories. And then a lot of the endings or in the summaries, they say that we just hope to leave something for our future generations to be really proud of about our family history. And I know from reading the Grover one, there was so much information in there that I was very little informed of the Grover family in York. And when I got done reading this document, I was like, wow, I had no idea of all of this. And it's such a great thing for families to have that. So I know amongst us, there are family historians, all of us perhaps, and we could all be capable of writing some sort of thing like this for our own future generations to have and to hold. And I just wanted to add that as a comment.
Was that Robert Grover, the son of Will and Helen Grover?
I only remember Robert.
He was a professor
Oh,
at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, I believe. And very, very, very smart.
yeah, that was this guy. Yeah.
It's got to be the same.
Yeah.
I worked with Helen at the old jail for many years, and she always talked about Robert.
Yeah.
And I've met him too.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's great. I don't remember the date, but I'm sure Carl would share it. I think he didn't know how to share a PDF. That's what he told me. Okay, so we got a lot of people coming, trying to get in here. That next time we're definitely going to password protect this. I can't keep up with it. They found it.
You're doing
Elaine,
good.
what is your family history with York?
Oh, my mother was a Freeman. I've got Freemans. I've got Moultons. I've got, I think way back, maybe a Rains. I'm not sure. More from over to Rains Neck. Kingsbury.
Kingsbury.
My mother's family's been here since the 16 with the Simpsons,
Mhm.
for a long, long time. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
It's like 1630s.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I got a lot of connections.
It's incredible to have that kind of connection. It's just so rare and
It sounds
so
like you do too.
special. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I love Magical Rain or Magical York.
And it's interesting that everybody has the same amount of ancestors. It's just that ours seem to be concentrated, or a lot of ours seem to be concentrated right here in York.
Who are you gonna bring in?
Nobody. I can't let anybody else in. Yeah, and it's unfortunate that this kind of stuff happens, because I don't think it's appropriate even now to post this on Facebook once we're done.
Sad.
Yeah.
So you're gonna wrap up at the top of the hour?
Yeah, I think we've done great. We leaving everybody interested and wanted to come back for more, perhaps.
Yeah, I want to say thank you I found the page accidentally. I saw the three of you did about an hour one time. Oh, maybe a couple of months ago. And I happened to find that video, which led me to, and I'm having a blast
Oh, good.
reading and
We are
making
too.
connections.
Yeah.
And,
We are too.
just going through and finding some of these things, it's amazing.
Yeah. That's
I'm enjoying it too. And usually I have a 4 o'clock on Sundays and it canceled all of a sudden. And that's why I came in late. So I really wasn't prepped today to talk too much. I forget the names sometimes and I have to have them right in front of me to be able to give you all the names, because there are a lot of Moultons in the area.
Yes, there are.
Can I interject something? Just a quick one. Jean and I graduated together, and she led our class down the aisle. She was the valedictorian, and I brought up the end of the aisle.
I'm not surprised.
That was the thing, that when Kevin was much more outgoing, I'm an introvert and Kevin's not. And so usually the extroverts were all in one grouping and the introverts were in another grouping. So I didn't really get to know you very much, Kevin.
Oh, well, we
were
all
actually
get old.
We were on TV together once up in Poland Spring on Classroom Quiz when it was on TV.
Wow.
You
Remember that, Kevin?
Not this guy. I wasn't on it.
Really? Now am I confusing with somebody else? I'll have to look back at that movie and
No.
say.
You better
Maybe
get, no, I wasn't. No. That wasn't
Okay,
it.
I'll have to look now.
Thank you for the compliment.
So also I just want to not lose sight of the fact that this segment is in celebration of our first anniversary as a group. Kevin pointed that out a couple of weeks ago. So it's pretty amazing. And like you said earlier, the group has grown sort of exponentially beyond what we would have imagined. So we're really grateful. And I'm grateful to you, Kevin and Elaine, for adding so much to this group. So thank you guys.
Yeah, likewise, thank you to the founding members and for pulling this together and keeping it going. And it's amazing how it's growing.
All the members that make up the group. I'd just like to say, apologize for anybody that didn't get in, that wants to get in, or we're going to try and limit it to an hour, these shows, or whatever we do. Please don't be offended. We love your input. If we didn't get to you, we'll get to you at some other time. Thank you. For the members make up the group. That's what I want to say. Elaine?
I got to say the same thing. It's the people that post and give us so much information. I just love looking at those family histories because I do genealogy. And so that once you start with that, I mean, it's just so much fun. Thank you, all of you.
Okay.
That's up to you, Kevin.
You can sign.
Yeah, I just want to say goodbye to everybody.